Hi guys, welcome back to day 4 of Exponent Rules. So what we're going to do today is finish up multiplication, the product property, and the quotient property. And then next week we're going to talk a little bit about negative exponents, zero, and power property. So we're going to finish up week 1. So if you're looking at the homework, by the end of the class today, end of this lesson, you should be able to answer all the problems on it. So on Monday we did problems like 1, 2, and 3. We used the product property, and we added exponents. Then on 7, 8, and 9, on Tuesday, again we used the product property, but then also talked a little bit about coefficients, numbers in front of the variables. Then on Wednesday, we brought in the quotient property. So what do we do if we're dividing, and how do we simplify those down? So now what we're going to do is do problems like 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So those are the problems we're going to talk about today. So let's look at those problems. So, number 10. So we look at that. That's very, very similar to kind of what we did the other day. The only difference is now I have 2 variables. Well, like the same thing all week, in order to do anything with the variables, they have to be the same variable or you can't mess with the exponents. So what I do here is I take A and I kind of separate A and B a little bit. So I don't have to do this every single time, but I am going to separate the 2 problems. And so what that looks like is I'm going to have A to the 5th over A to the 3rd. Okay? And then I'm going to take my B to the 7th over my B to the 6th. So I'm going to take each one separately from each other. So if I look at it, I'm going to erase that 5 and redo it. That doesn't really look like a 5. Okay. So I look at my A's. And I go back to quotient property and say, where do I have more A's, top and bottom? Well, I have 5 on top and 3 on bottom. So I have 2 A's on top. Okay. And this is a fraction, so we'll make it. And then I go to the next problem and say I have B7 on top, B6 on bottom. Where do I have more B's, top or bottom? Well, I have 1 more B on top. I have nothing on bottom. I can put a 1 there, or that's my answer. So again, we're separating the variables, messing with the exponents. Where do I have more? Again, I can also subtract, or I could have written out 5 A's on top, 3 A's on bottom, and cancel, and I would have had 2 A's left on top. And I could have written out 7 B's and 6 B's, and I would have had 1 B left on top. Okay? So let's look at number 11, but let's try not to write those out separately. Let's just try to do it together. Okay? So I have x3 and x9. So make my little fraction bar there. So I have 3 on top and 9 on bottom. So I have more x's on bottom. How many more x's do I have? Well, I have 6 more x's on bottom. And then I look at my y's. I have 5 y's on top, 6 y's on bottom. I have 1 more y on bottom. There's nothing up here, so mathematically I have to put a 1. Okay? Just on the same thing, I could have on this problem here, back on number 10, I could have put a 1 over this as well. So if you want to kind of stay consistent with it, you absolutely can. If there's nothing there, you put your placeholder as your 1. So let's do number 12. Again, these problems, 10, 11, and 12 are like number 7 on your homework. So let's look at our x's and y's. Let's make our fraction. So I have 3 x's on top, 5 x's on bottom. So I have more x's on bottom, and I have 2 more x's on bottom. Again, where do I have more, and how many more? And that's my exponent, is how many more. Then I have 7 y's on top and 2 y's on bottom. So I have more y's on top, and I have 5 more y's on top. And I'm done. Okay? So again, with division, there's a couple different ways you can do it. I like to teach it as just where do I have more, top and bottom, and how many more do I have. Okay? So what we're going to do now is combine product property and quotient property. So what you've learned the last 3 days kind of all comes together in problem 13 and 14. There's a couple different ways you can do these problems. I'm going to show you one way, but then I'll show you, or I'll tell you the other way as well. So let's look at these problems here. So we're going to do each one of these separately from each other. So I'm going to first look at the left fraction. So I have x4 and x3. So I have one more x on top. And I have y7 and y6. So I have one more y on top and nothing on the bottom. Okay? So I handle that fraction. Then I'm going to cross off the fraction I just handled, put my multiplication sign, and handle the right fraction. So now I have 10 x's on top, 3 x's on bottom. So where do I have more x's? Well, I have 7 more x's on top. And then I have 8 y's on top, 2 y's on bottom. So I have 6 more y's on top. Okay? So I've taken the original problem right here and I've simplified it down. I think it really helps to cross off or cover up one fraction at a time so the problem doesn't look so daunting. So now what I'm going to do on number 13 is I'm going to go way back into the top and I'm going to do what I did right here on number 7. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to combine my x's and my y's or my z's and add their exponents because I'm multiplying them together. So let's go back down here to 13. So the ones on the bottom here, 1 times 1 is 1, so those just kind of go away. Okay? So I'm kind of just left on this problem, this. So I do x to the 1 plus 7 because I add the exponents when I multiply, and then I have y to the 1 plus 6. Again, they have to have like bases in order to add them. So 1 plus 7 is 8. 1 plus 6 is 7. And I'm done. Okay, so I separate up, simplify down, multiply, simplify down again. Okay, let's do one more of those problems just to make sure we're good. So let's look at number 14. So again, I'm going to cross off that side, cover it up. Look at my left parenthesis or my left fraction first. Again, if there's no exponent there, remember there's an imaginary 1 there. Really important to know because sometimes we forget about it altogether. So I would suggest to put it on there. So I have 4 x's on top and 2 x's on bottom. So I have 2 more on top. I have 3 y's on top and 1 y on bottom. So I have 2 more on top and I have a 1 down here. Okay. Times. So again, I'm simplifying down the fraction. Then I'm going to come over here to my other fraction and look at that problem. So I have 2 x's on top and 10 x's on bottom. So I have 8 more x's on bottom. And I have 4 y's on top and 12 y's on bottom. So I have 8 more y's on bottom as well. Ooh, let's rewrite that. That's a little crazy there. So I have nothing on top, so I have my 1. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. Well, when I look at this, when I multiply straight across. So 1 times x squared over y really gives me x squared over y. And 1 times x to the 8th, y to the 8th gives me x to the 8th, y to the 8th. Because 1 times anything is itself. So now this problem is a little more intensive because now I have a fraction again. So I'm going to go back to my quotient property and say, okay, where do I have more? Well, I have 2 x's on top and 8 x's on bottom. So I have 6 more x's on bottom. And then I do my y's. I have 2 y's on top and 8 y's on bottom. So I have 6 more y's on bottom. I have nothing in the numerator, so I'm going to put a 1 there, and then I'm done. Okay? So number 14 is probably the hardest type problem that you're going to see on the assessment over this. Take your time with it. We're going to work a lot more with it, but you should be able to complete your homework numbers 1 through 8 over week 1 of Exponent Rules after watching this video. If you have any questions, log on to Zoom. I look forward to seeing you guys. Have a great day. Thanks for stopping by.